it's me again. Let's read Princess Disgrace, first term, second term at Total Towers. I was so close it. Chapter 10, Finding a Dance. All the rest of that week, Grace tried her best to think of a way to represent her smelly, scruffy dragon's heartbeat in a dance. Study your flowers for ideas, my dear princesses, cried Madame Lafayette. She looked like a gleaming hummingbird today, in a flowing ballet skirt that shimmered in every shade of the rainbow. My outfit is inspired by the colorful petals around me, she said, buzzing almost amongst the princess and leaping from one girl to the next. Most of the class had brought their flowers along the lesson with them, so that they could look closely at the pretty petals and buds. Only Grace, Pongy Weed, and Precious Poisonous Nightshade were banned from being anywhere near the ballet studio ever again. Following the little misshape with our invitations, said Madame. New one will have not been sent out, along with a program listing the flower that each princess will represent in her dance. I wonder if they'll write dragon fart on the program, whispered Precious, who was practicing the splits. Grace stared down her feet, but could tell the whole class was looking at her. They were aware of those faults the little misshape had been. She had barely spoken to Esme and Scarlet since the argument in the library, but she knew they'd spent hours making new inventions to replace the one that she had ruined in the mud. Lots of the other princesses had helped out, but no one had asked Grace to join in. The show will be upon us before we know it, said Madame Lafayette, clapping her hands excitedly. We will have a great deal of work to do, so find yourselves a partner. I want you to show each other your dance so far. Grace didn't move. She had already seen Izumi grab Scarlet's hand. Precious had dived across the room to partner with wealthy Violetta. The twins were together, and her best friend Princess Rosamond and Juliet, Cristobal and Emmeline, Letitia and Martin had paired up too. There were only ever supposed to be 12 princesses in class Total Towers. When the headmistress, Lady Dulac, had allowed Grace to join, she was number 13. That means there was left out with a partner. It had never mattered before. Scarlet, Izzy, and Grace had always joined together as the threesome. Grace longed to join them now. Hurry and find a group, my dear, said Madame Blackfeather, seeing that Grace was still alone. I'm sure one of these pairs don't mind. But Grace shook her head. I haven't really got much of a dance to show anybody yet, she said. Can I practice a bit more on my own? She pointed to the back wall of the ballet studio, which could cover from floor to ceiling in mirrors. Very well. If you think that's how your ideas will blossom, said Madame Lafayette, but there are only 3 weeks until the show. You need to come up with a beautiful, creative idea for your dance very soon. Grace nodded, stamped her feet, trying to imagine that her long legs and knobbly trees were roots pushing down to the soil. But when she stared at her reflection, she saw that all the jiggling about made it look as she was desperate to go to the toilet. If only ballet didn't have to be so elegant, she thought, watching in the mirror as Princess Cristobal rose up gently on her toes. Even without the white tutu she would wear a performance, it was easy to imagine Cristobal as a delightful snowdrop peeping through the frozen ground. Scarlet spun silently past too. Her arms light as petals. It was a delicate steam blowing in the wind. Izumi followed, her fingers trembling like a water lily leaf on a lake. This is hopeless, groaned Grace under her breath. She imagined Scarlet dressed as a bright red poppy and Izumi in pale water lily pink. What will I wear? She mumbled. A piece of smelly old sack. Even Precious Poison Plant's dance was taking shape as she spun across the room with her nose in the air, as haughty and beautiful as an evil queen. Search deep inside your own heart, said Madame Lafayette, lifting Grace's hands gently into the air. You could begin to feel the dance growing inside you. You are full of imagination, my dear. I know you will come up with a wonderful idea all in good time. I will try my very best, said Grace. At that moment, she wished more than anything that she could prove her wonderful, encouraging ballet teacher right. She promised herself that she could spend the whole weekend dancing. The trouble was, she had promised Hetty that she could ride Billy again, too. Chapter 11. Answering Back. The next morning, Grace saddled Billy and led him along the driveway to meet Hetty by the school gate. "Watch out for a flump!" cried Hetty. Grace saw a flash of yellow out of the corner of her eyes as the enormous dragon hound came bounding forward. He threw his giant paws around Grace's neck, almost knocking her to the ground, as great dribbles of drool splashed on her shoulder. "Sorry," said Hetty. "He needs a good run on the moors. I think Billy is feeling the same way," smiled Grace, as the shaggy unicorn shook his head and rubbed a bit in his mouth. "Ready?" Grace put a twist in Billy's stirrup leather so that they short enough to the little girl's use. "Jump on!" But Hetty shook her head. "It's not safe for me to ride a unicorn so close to school," he whispered. "Someone will see us." "Perhaps you're right," agreed Grace, as she spotted Precious and the twins peering at them over the garden hedge. "How hilarious! Grace has made friends with a scruffy servant girl," laughed Precious loudly. "A scruffy servant! Hilarious!" snorted the twins. "Don't pay any attention to them," said Grace. But Precious was having fun now. "I'm not surprised Grace's only friend is a servant. She never behaved like a proper princess, and now she's gone totally wild," she said, roaring with laughter. "There's not a single princess in the class who dared to go anywhere near her. She might kick a stone at them or knock them over in the mud." "Oh, be quiet, Precious," snapped Grace. "Go and put a frog in your mouth. I'd be friends with Hetty no matter what. She's worth 10 of you." Flum raised his hand, hackles, and growled. "Yes, go and put a frog in your mouth, Princess Precious," echoed Hetty, as she stepped out of behind Billy. Grace thought she might explode with laughter as she turned to see the little girl with her hands on her hips. It was so good to hear someone stand up to Precious for once, especially someone half of her size. She wanted to lift Hetty up in the air and cheer. But a second later, she saw the flush of color rain from Hetty's cheeks as she realized what she had done, and one look at Precious' fierce face told Grace that it would have been better if Grace had kept quiet. "I'm so sorry, Your Majesty," trembled Hetty, peering under her long, dark lashes. "How dare you!" gasped Precious. She clutched her chest and stumbled as if she might faint. Trinket and Truffle grabbed her arms. "A servant girl talking to me like that!" breathed Precious. "It was only a joke," said Grace. "Hetty was just copying me." "Forgive me, Your Majesty," Hetty blushed. She bobbed down to a low curtsy, her lips wobbling as she was about to cry. "She didn't say anything you didn't deserve," said Grace, putting her arms around Hetty's shoulder. "You were being a horrible snob, Precious, and you know it." She took hold of Billy's bridle and gently turned Hetty around. "Come on," she said. "You can help me muck out the stable if you like." She didn't dare let Precious know they were really going to for a ride on a unicorn. That would be the last straw. "You haven't heard the end of this, Hetty Falcon. Just you wait," shouted Precious as they led Billy away. "I'll make sure you are fired from your little job feeding the peacocks, and I'll see that your uncle loses his job as a gamekeeper too." "She can't do that, can she?" gasped Hetty. "Of course not," said Grace quickly. "Little Joack would never let it happen. Precious had no power over who works at Tall Towers and who doesn't." But Grace knew Precious would find some way to make Hetty pay for what she had done. "Even if he doesn't lose his job, Uncle Falcon will fear us when he hears I stuck my tongue out at a real princess," shivered Hetty. She looked more afraid than ever. Grace remembered how long it had taken Hetty to stop Kirsty and calling her Young Majesty when they first met. Keeper Falcon was a stern man. He had trained Hetty to be polite to every princess. Precious was looking for trouble. "I'll happily tell you, Uncle, and anyone else to know," said Grace, desperate to calm Hetty's fears. "For now, we'd better find extract, especially secret to the ride. I don't trust Precious not to follow us and see what we're up to. We could always go to the gemstone glade, said Hetty shyly. You really are sure you don't mind letting me have another go? Of course I'm sure. I'm going to teach you canter today, said Grace. But where's the gemstone glade? I've never heard of it before. It's a big meadow hidden in the far forest, said Hetty, her eyes lighting up. It would be a secret riding school. Sounds perfect, whooped Grace. Lead the way. Chapter 12. The Gemstone Meadow. Hetty rode ahead, steering Billy down the track that twisted deep into the woods. The silver dragon horn was slung over her back on the leader trap. I've ridden this 100 times, panted Grace, struggling to keep up with the unicorn's little rider, as Flum bounded along beside them. I thought the path just led to the cliffs. I told you the gemstone glade is a secret, said Hetty, as they left the main path and ducked into the trees. The Toll Tower's people forget about it because they only ever come here once a year. Grace got to ask what the princess came at all, but when they reached the glade, the words caught in her throat. It's beautiful, she gasped. They were standing beside a large circle of soft grass, a perfect place for Hetty to learn to canter. All around the edge of grass, like a band of jewels around the crown, it was a bright ring of hundreds and hundreds of wildflowers. No, they call it the gemstone glade, said Grace. It was warm sun, and the small bright flowers looked like rubies and emeralds, sapphire, diamonds, and pearls. They only bloom for a few weeks every spring, said Hetty, but I think that makes it more special. All thought is magic. And not a dragon's heart weed anywhere, laughed Grace. I should have come here when I was looking for my ballot flower. Billy pulled hard on his rein. Hetty almost toppled over his head as he stretched down to eat a bunch of pretty flowers. Oh, no, you don't! Grace led Billy down to the circle of plain grass, where it could do no harm. Let a bite or two here, she said, as Hetty loosed the reins and let her front the saddle. Billy switched his tail and chewed happily. Only Flum didn't seem to like the magical glade much. Having run twice around the edge of the ring, he stopped at the furthest edge and shivered like a frightened deer. Ahoo! He threw his huge hairy head in the air and howled. What's the matter with him? Asked Grace. He sounds scared. Hetty riding. I'm not sure, said Hetty, but you know what a baby he is. Baby Flum sniffed among the flowers with his bottom high in the air and nose low into the ground. His tail was clamped tight between his legs. He doesn't like the smell of something, said Grace. Perhaps it's all these flowers, laughed Hetty. But he's probably just looking for food. She whistled and the huge dog came bounding towards them. You can have something to eat in a minute. I bought you cinnamon buns. I know they're your favorite. First we have to teach you canter, Hetty, said Grace, nearing full over as Flum would wound himself between her legs. That means it's time for Billy to stop thinking about eating too. She showed Hetty how to trot in a circle, then squeeze her legs so the unicorn rocked forward and cantered gently around the rings. You're doing it, cried Grace. I told you you'd be a natural. Grace even taught the younger girl how to do a figure of 8 and crisscross the ring without breaking Billy's stride. Then she had a quick canter herself. She just couldn't resist having a go on the soft green grass before they loosened Billy's girth and let him have a proper rest. Hetty lifted in the silver dragon horn and peered inside. I thought we might get hungry, she explained, rolling up her sleeves. So I brought some homemade elderflower cordial. She produced a green glass bottle, wrapped inside a soft cloth and deep inside the horn. I baked some cinnamon buns too. You baked these? Asked Grace, licking the sugar from her lips as she took a bite of the soft bun. Yes, blushed Hetty. It's easy, really. I do a lot of cooking because since my mom died, I live with Uncle Falk on my own. What about your dad? Asked Grace gently. Where is he? I don't even know who my dad is, shrugged Hetty. I think he was a sailor, or maybe a pirate. Her eyes sparkled for a second, but then clouds passed over her face again. Hetty sniffed as she told Grace how her mom had drowned 2 years ago when a fishing boat had been caught in the storm at sea. Mom always said she would tell me who my dad was when I was older, but now I'll never know. Uncle Falcon refuses to even talk about it. Grace held Hetty's hand and told her how she had lost her mother too. The girls talked and talked. Look, said Hetty, Chalky has come back. Sure enough, the little white unicorn was staring at them from an edge of the trees. Billy, who was still eating grass, raised his head and whined. "And there's his mom," said Grace, who could just make out the dappled gray shape of the unicorn make further back in the gloom. Hetty grinned, showing back the big gap where she was missing a tooth. "I thought perhaps he was like us," she said. "I thought perhaps he didn't have a mummy?" asked Grace, squeezing the little girl's hand. "But he does, look." "Yes." Hetty peered into the trees, still grinning, and sprang suddenly to her feet. "Where's Flum?" she asked. "He didn't even came for cinnamon buns. That's not like him at all." There was no sign of the dog anywhere. "Flum!" called Grace, jumping up too, and shouting as loudly as she could. "Flum!" hollered Hetty. "Where are you?" Chalky started at the sound of their voices and crashed away through the trees behind his mother. "Let's tie Billy somewhere safe," said Grace. "We'll search all around. Flum can't have gone far." He's probably just scared himself somehow. "Ow!" The girls rose as the air was filled with frightened howl. "That's him!" cried Hetty. Grace was already running towards the sound. Chapter 13. Behind the Ivy. "Ahoo!" Flum howled again. "I'm coming!" shouted Grace. She dashed towards the hill that rose up behind the woods at the far side of the glade. Sure where Flum's cries were coming from. At the foot on the slope, almost hidden by the trees, she could see a long step right of the rock and the hanging ivy weeds. Mines. "Ahoo!" "Perhaps he has been hurt," said Grace. Wherever Flum was, the poor thing was in a terrible state. She could imagine the look panic in his big goofy eyes. "Ow! Ow!" "That's odd!" Grace skidded to the top of Hetty's steps behind her. "It sounds as if he's inside a rock." She stretched out her hands. At first she touched the solid wall stone, but suddenly her fingers passed clean through the curtain of hanging ivy. "There's a cave behind here," she gasped, lifting the vines and peering into the gloomy darkness beyond. She could just make it the shadows slow sailing on soft-draped boulders on the floor. "Awoo!" Flum howled again. It was definitely coming from deep inside the cave. "Poor thing, he sounds so scared," said Hetty. "He must be trapped inside somewhere." Grace edged to the gloom. "You stay in the glade with Billy. I'll go and find him. It's going to be a scary trip." Grace didn't wait for Hetty to answer. She pushed inside the spider webs and flung into the darkness. Her heart was beating fast. She had rescued the big silly dog before she scared himself to death. "I'm coming, Flum!" she called boldly. There was a grapple of stones behind her. "Who's there?" Grace jumped, almost banging her head on the low ceiling of the cave. "Only me," said a tiny voice. Hetty grabbed Grace's hand. "I'm coming too," she said. "Billy will be all right. I tied him to a tree with special safety knot you taught me." "You'll be much safer to wait outside," said Grace. "Then you could run out if... Next you're going to tell me I'm too little," Hetty growled. "Well, I'm not." She stood on tiptoes on the top of her head. Almost reached Grace's shoulders. "I have to help find Flum. He hates it when I'm not around." Grace smiled at herself in the darkness. Hetty reminded her so much of her little sister, Princess Pip. They might be small, but they were very brave, and once they set their mind to something, there was no point in trying to argue. Grace couldn't be cross. She knew she would feel exactly the same if it was Billy who was in danger. "Keep hold of me tight and be careful, then," she sighed. "Ow!" They followed Flum's house deeper and deeper into gloom. There was just enough light to see that the cave was lined with rows and spiky rocks, sharp as teeth, pushing up the log floor and hanging from the ceiling too. "Yikes! It's like we're standing in a dragon's mouth," trembled Hetty. "As long as that's not a dragon's spit," said Grace as drips of water splashed onto their heads on the damp of the wood below. They picked their way on a stony floor until the ceiling sloped so low that Grace could hardly stand up. She stretched out her hand and felt a cold, slimy wall of rock. She ran fingers from side to side, feeling up and down. "It's the end of the cave," she said. "But that's impossible. Flum must be in here somewhere. We heard him so clearly." "What's that?" Hetty pointed to a dime shape of light no brighter than a candle, flickering between two huge tubes and rocks. "Ow!" Flum howled again. The sound was definitely coming from the same direction of the light. "Don't let go of me," Grace roared as they scrambled forward. The glow was brighter now. Grace thought the light was coming through a narrow slit in the wall. "Daylight!" she gasped at the glimpse of the silver and blue sky. There was the smell of salt and the sound of waves crashing far below. "I think it's this back entrance to the cave," said Grace, peering through the slit like a narrow hole in the castle wall. Must come out somewhere at the cliffs. She ducked her head to see that she squeezed through. Oh! Flumped? Hetty pushed Grace out of the way and tried to wriggle through the gap first. There was no doubt about it. The dog and Caesar's howl would definitely come from just on the other side of the crack. Stop! Grace said. Grabbed the back of Hetty's smoke. Don't take another step, she whispered urgently. Look! Grace pointed with her shaking finger as 3 puffs of grey smoke floated through the gap towards them. Oh! Flum howled from the ledge outside. The morsel billowed to the crack. A dragon! Cried the girls together. Chapter 14. Saving Flump. How are we going to save Flum now? Wailed Hetty as the girls stood quivering in the cave. They couldn't see anything through the narrow gap in the rock, but there was no doubt there was a dragon out there. The Scarlet Crimson must have stayed on the island after all, cooked Grace. Now that she got Flum and she's going to eat him, wailed Hetty. Oh, why didn't any of you believe when you said you seen a dragon, Grace? The little girl dashed forward and going to squeeze through the gap and plunge the dragon right on the end of his very nose. Don't! She'll gobble you up in one bite, said Grace, trying to grab Hetty. She caught hold of the horn, which was still strapped on the little girl's back. Of course, said Grace. Isn't the thing supposed to calm the dragons down? I think so, said Hetty, her feet almost dashing in the air as Grace pulled her backwards with the horn. It has to be worth a try, said Grace, honking the instrument around her own neck. I'm going to peek through the gap and see what's going on. If I can do pump, I will. You're not like our princesses, whispered Hetty. Uncle Falcon, yes, you are a disgrace. But that's not true. You're brilliant and brave. Hetty stood on tiptoes and kissed Grace's cheek. And I wish you were my big sister. Grace blushed so hard that she felt her face would be glowing bright red in the dark cave. You stay well back, she said firmly, trying to sound as strict as Fairy Godmother Flint. And is there any trouble? Any trouble at all? Rachel told her to fetch help. She smiled for a second, trying not to think about shaking knees as she imagined what Precious' face would look like if she saw Hetty galloping to school garden in a unicorn shouting, Hell, we found a dragon in the cliffs! A light that would show her once of her old Claire had been telling her the truth. It was no good, thought, as she thought of the magnificent but terrifying she had seen on the day she had pulling up trees. Grace's knees began to shake all harder. And the dragon seemed normal when she flying in the sky, or could she like being face to face? Woo! Another smoke ring flowed through the gap. Grace's lips trembled, but she straightened her shoulders, lifted the instrument to her lips and blew. Nothing, not a sound. Grace pursed her lips and blew again harder, still nothing. She puffed out her cheeks, blew through her nose, and PARP! At least the horn made a noise, but it's very rude. A bit like Billy when he's eating too many promised seeds. Oh dear, murmured Grace, blushing all over again. She does not mean to sound like that. Of course it's not. Hetty reached up, took the horn and blew. Pom, pom, pom. The instrument at once made a bright, cheerful sound like a being in a stance. Oh no! Grace hoped the horn of some kind of special magic, something that would send the dragon to sleep. A tune like it's going to make her more lively. Grace groaned. Woo! Flum howled. Slowly, very slowly, and without making another sound, the girls edged forward. Hetty ducked down between Grace's legs as they peered through. They could see a white stone ledge beyond, at the road at the deck of the ship. Look! Gasped Grace. Oh, squealed Hetty. Flum was just standing in the tip of the ledge, which jutted out of the cliffs high and above the sea. Woo! He was shaking like a bowl of orange jelly. Huff! The perfect ring of smoke floating in the air. In the middle of the ledge was a dragon. But it's tiny, said Grace in surprise. She edged out to the white ledge, clothed in a nest of seaweed, its bright red tail tucked under her snout as the little crimson dragon popped no bigger than Piglet. Silly old Flum! Laughed Hetty as she quivering dart past in the drum until his arms around her neck. How could you be scared of something so small and cute? It's just a baby, grinned Grace. So that's all I'm going to read for now. See you next time, and I'll read more.